I'll send my IT bill to what's the same one?
It's conflict of interest, right?
No,
Gaining directly financially.
well, it might be like a beer or something, so it's not money.
We lie.
We'll talk on it.
Okay. Just give me this. Good evening. Welcome to our Council and Committee of the Whole meeting for June 6, 2023. Good evening. Bienvenue à notre réunion de conseil pour le 6 juin. Call the meeting to order, and we'll open with the land acknowledgement this evening with Councillor Pellerin.
Bonjour tout le monde. Je souhaite prendre un moment pour souligner l'importance du territoire sur lequel nous sommes rassemblés. La municipalité de West-Nipissing reconnaît avec respect que nous sommes réunis sur les terres ancestrales des peuples Anishinaabe, sur les territoires traditionnels des Premières Nations Nipissing, de Mogami et d'Okus, désignés par le traité Robinson-Huron. Nous honorons leurs liens historiques avec le territoire et nous valorisons leur contribution considérable au façonnement et au renforcement de nos communautés. Ce faisant, nous réaffirmons notre engagement et notre responsabilité envers la réconciliation et l'amélioration de notre compréhension des peuples autochtones locaux et de leur culture. Merci.
Thank you very much. I'll take any declarations of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, we'll move on to 3.1 to approve the addendum.
It is moved by Councillor Gagné and seconded by Councillor Pellerin. Be it resolved that the addendum for the meeting of council held on June 6, 2023 be approved as presented.
All in favor? Carried.
Les proposé par Conseiller Pellerin, appuyé par Conseiller Gagné. Be it resolved that the agenda for the meeting of council held on June 6, 2023 be approved as presented.
Questions, comments? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. And we'll move on to number 5, Committee of the Whole. And we have a couple items under general government this evening. The first being capital budget policy. Mr. Barbeau?
Actually, given that this is a financial issue, the treasurer will be presenting. She has developed the draft policy, and she'd be best to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. So you've got a copy of the draft policy, and this is sort of following along. We've had a financial policy that covered a lot of how the operating expenditures and things like that work and how the budgeting process works. And so this just sort of addresses some of the capital side. Some of it is sort of encapsulates what we're doing now. Some of it sort of encapsulates some best practices and some things that we need to move towards or strive towards. So we have some consistency in our capital planning across the departments and sort of for the future of the municipality. When we look at definitions, you know, it just talks about things that are considered capital, things that are considered sources of financing. All that I think is fairly self-explanatory as we go through. Talk about the sources where when we're doing capital budget preparation, when department heads and managers are looking at capital budget preparation, some of these other plans obviously form part of how their budget is formed. So things like asset management plans, as we renew those, and council will be required to review asset management plans every year, strategic plans, and included in that is council term plans, community input, council requests, asset inventory. So all of this sort of follows sort of sources where people our managers and directors are going to look for when they're developing their capital budgets. And again, some of the next part, you know, we were just talking about getting consistency on it and sort of give some ability to start to look at sort of quantifying it and structuring both from our asset management plan and then to council term plan and council, which is how things are prioritized, and sort of just to make it a little bit clearer on how some projects come to the top of the list and why other projects aren't. So, you know, when we're looking at asset management plan and we're looking at ratings, we're looking at what the timing of the project is. So the directors and managers are going to give us all that information so that we can make good choices and present good choices to council on that. We'll go through the rating at the end there. And so it talks a little bit about sort of how it reviewed, and this is a little bit what's happening right now anyway. So the managers and directors sort of put their capital plans together. I review it with them. I review them with the CAO. We put together a presentation that comes to council. So that's just sort of encapsulating how we're doing some of it now, and then council has the approval of it. A little bit for consistency and a little bit going back to past practice that during COVID sort of kind of fell off the wayside, but is a really important practice. And as we renew our asset management plans, I just wanted to sort of encapsulate it again in the policy so that it's really clear to all of our departments how we're doing it, is that development of longer term plans as well, so that when they come, that we'll have sort of that rolling 5-year plan, and council sees these plans every year. Council actually will need to review your asset management plan every year, so it's sort of part and parcel with that. It's a little bit together, but so this is what the 5-year is, and the 5-year does change because a road, I'm going to pick on roads because they're easy, a road that looked like it might be 3 years out has suddenly deteriorated very quickly, and it's now only 1 year out, and so these aren't sort of set in stone, but at least we have some idea of the financial commitment over the next 5 years, and a somewhat idea over the next 10 years. And so that we'll have those plans in place, and we'll have the sort of approval of the longer term plans, and have councils thinking that way, and also having our department heads thinking that way. So we start to see that longer cycle of planning that comes through. And this again, it sort of overlaps capital budget approval, asset management, they roll together, and then how we do final budgets as well. But you know, when we're looking at budget approval, a capital budget approval, we'll probably come to you as we do our asset management review and review what our next 5 years are going to be. And each year sort of come at the same time. So that we have a draft kind of plan approved, that when we get to actual budget, we know what reserves we need, we know what transfers from reserve, we know what financing we need. So we have all that sort of in place by the time we get to our actual budget stage with operating budget. I know we've talked about moving our operating budget process earlier this year. So we might have all these things kind of running back together this year as we sort of roll through and get a rhythm of it this year, and get these plans in place and sort of be able to move forward. I'm going to bring you down to sort of the end of page, I'll make sure, I think I'm on page 3, end of page 2, beginning of page 3. Capital spending before annual budget approval. And so this is actually what we have in place. It wasn't ingrained in a policy. It was brought to council last term, and I think last term, and just sort of approved by council, but wasn't encapsulated in a policy. So I've just brought it into a policy on it. And so it talks about, you know, so obviously if we've approved, I'm going to use this here, if we've approved capital projects in 2023 and the project doesn't get completed in 2023, it rolls to the following year. It's already approved. It just keeps rolling. Sometimes those will be work in progress. So we've already started the project and that carries forward. Sometimes it might be a matter of tendering or delay in start. But if the project has sort of been approved, there's an assumption that it's sort of carried forward to the next year. If we're going to cancel a project, then we will sort of formally cancel a project so that it's not that automatic roll through. We also had the ability to look at sort of critical projects if they didn't exceed 75% of the committed funds last year. So if there was always $1 million transfer to reserve and we had some critical incident come up, as long as it was less than that 75% of it, then it kind of could roll forward. We don't expect to use that a lot. A lot of that would fall under sort of emergency things as well, and we would be back to council for a lot of that. The next line, the renewal rehabilitation projects that are approved, and part of that 5-year plan, that's what we want. So a lot of this falls into heavy equipment purchasing, getting some of those quotes out early and things like that, so that if there's $500,000 of fleet approved in funding for fleet approved in this year, and we have a 5-year approved plan for fleet replacement, then before we get to final budget approval, if budget approval happened to be March rather than budget approval being early, then they would still be able to spend 75% of that $500,000 that was already committed. It doesn't commit them to more dollars. And a lot of that just helps get that timing going so that we're not sort of behind the eight ball and getting our tenders out. And with equipment, sometimes it's a sort of a 16-month cycle. And so they'd be ordering late in the season for the following year. And again, when we talk about where we're looking at doing budgeting and how we do budgeting, some of these things may come up a lot closer and a lot tighter together as we roll through things. If, the next up, if we talk about approval granted by council, so that means that sometime outside of our budget process, we come to council and say, hey, we've got this we want to do, and council approves it, then it sort of fits in with the policy. And things that fit the emergency repairs, so to deal with things that have come up instantly. And again, when we have emergency of any scale that's going to, have a significant dollar figure attached to it, we're always coming to council, informing council that there's been emergencies and things that have gone on. Talked a bit about the capital budget reporting. So this will be a little bit of a change in our process. So right now I am providing summaries of capital budgets to directors. Generally, the reporting back that council has been getting is just, yes, this is on track, this is on track, this one's been tendered, and getting kind of that activity update. When I bring back the financial quarterly updates for council, there will be just a capital budget portion that's with that as well, so you can see where the capital budget is on things. So authority for budget changes, and this one I see we sort of struggled with, and I took a look at a number of other municipalities and looked at what other people were doing and looked at how we handle things. So obviously, when we have either unbudgeted things that come up or a project that's going to be over budget, the first thing we're going to have departments do is to take a look at what they can do within their own budget. So can they scale back that project so that it actually comes in at budget? Can they cancel a current or prior year project so that you use the same funding source? And this is a little bit what we did with the heavy equipment last meeting. They said, okay, we're not going to do the sweeper this year. It's the same pool of funding. Can we use this funding instead? So that's when they sort of cancel another project, or sometimes canceling a whole project and then have to resubmit it for the next year when we're looking at longer term planning. And a lot of that would go back to how critical the project was, whether there were other sources of funding, whether they had any capability of scaling back or any of that kind of things, or what the impact of delaying the project is. So when they have to sort of juggle things within their budget, it says that, so the treasurer or CAO, for projects up to $500,000, we can reallocate up to 10%. So the 50,000 that's within our signing authority for the procurement bylaw anyways. So if a department comes in and says, okay, this project's going to come in over budget, but I know that I can save it on this project, that we can kind of okay that transfer of funds from one project to another project. If it doesn't change the overall, budget, it doesn't change the overall funds needed for capital, it doesn't change that, just sort of within that level. For projects over $500,000, still just up to the 50,000, just still up to just that signing authority, that rejigging. Again, this is where it doesn't impact budget, it doesn't come back, it doesn't change any of that sort of stuff. It's just taking, okay, this project's under budget, we'll move it over here to this project. And that's why I said if no other capital projects have been approved. And again, so that also talks back if, and this doesn't, this wouldn't happen very often, but if we had a small overrun, it's still within that, whether we could transfer just money, we use operating just to offset it. If there was funds, again, that doesn't impact the overall budget, it's not going to cause the whole budget to come in over budget or any of that kind of thing. Anything that's outside of that scope, we're coming back to council again, like we did with that heavy equipment purchase recently. And it would often be, if we knew ahead of time, it would be at the time of award. When we come with an award, we're saying, okay, I'm bringing this award, this is over budget, but here's our thoughts on how we're going to get there. If something comes up that it's after award and we get into a construction project that suddenly has a significant change order that doesn't fit into this scope here, then we're coming back to council to discuss the change order that's going on and how we're proposing to fund anything that might be coming out of that. The last part is again, mostly just to help myself and my staff sort of keep track of what things over, under, and keep all that kind of budgeting stuff and when to expect projects to complete and holdbacks and all the rest. It's just that within 60 days of project being completed, we actually expect the department to notify us just in case we need to be chasing for invoices or like watching holdbacks and all that kind of stuff. So that's mostly just an internal process there. If you look at the last part, you look at the ranking system. Again, this is just kind of a proposed ranking system so that you can kind of see when managers and directors and department heads are bringing projects and looking at projects to give us a bit of again, just a tool on how we're looking at projects. Now, within asset management, there are some things that we'll talk about when we bring asset management plans back to you that talk about service levels and things like that. So there is some guidance within the asset management plans themselves already. Outside of that, we're looking at things like legislative requirements. You know, if we have to meet statutory or mandated initiatives, then obviously these projects are sort of rated highly because we have got compliance issues going on with that. Committed projects. And so ones that have started or a continuation from prior years. And so sometimes we'll see this where we've got projects coming in phases. So, you know, it might be that we're doing, you know, a road from this section to this section with this segment going the next year. And we might have 3 years of segments going where it's just sort of a continuation of a project. Then that sort of gets a higher priority. Serious threats to public health and safety. So again, obviously that should rate high. Phase project, like I said, talk about continuation. So that's a phase project where it just sort of goes along. We talk about where there's some potential loss of funding if we don't do this part, or we have this with water and sewer and public works where their projects kind of tie together. Sometimes we're trying to get both pieces moving together. So if we're doing the underground stuff, that we're doing the surfacing at the same time. Growth related projects. And again, you know, that the caveat on growth related is that there's sufficient funding, but it supports growth within the community. And, you know, so if we're looking at, we've got, you know, a lot of development on one side, and we're now looking at, you know, improving water and sewer on that side or things like that, that it's tied to growth when there's sufficient funding for it. You see growth sit in both 4-star and 3-star, and some of that is talks about whether the funding's available or how the growth, whether that actually impedes things or doesn't impede things. Serious life cycle maintenance. And so those are ones that, you know, don't have to get done this year, but absolutely we're going to be looking at within the next couple of years. And so it might be that, you know, a department head submits a project, we say, yep, it's got a little bit of a window, so it's going to actually be a 3-star, but by next year, it's actually suddenly become a 4-star because it's suddenly become critical. So projects will move between these each year, and that's how something that might be down lower one year is going to get bumped up as we look at following years with it. And then we get down to the bottom end of things. So, you know, ones that are sort of, you know, 3 or 4 years out. Ones that might improve efficiency, but you know, it talks about where the payback is. And so you see the life cycle where it's more than 4 years, life cycle that's less than 5 years. And so it just sort of gets down to, yeah, these are good things to have, and we'll absolutely look at these projects if all the really heavy projects are taken care of. And so that's just how it's sort of looking at the scoring system there. And like I said, and it does roll back into with some of our asset management and service levels and things like that, because the service levels become part of the safety concerns and phase projects and things like that, or life cycle maintenance, that being part of our service levels with our life cycle maintenance projects. So yeah, like I said, it's a combination, like I said, of things that we're doing now and sort of best practices that we should strive towards. And I'm certainly open to suggestions or thoughts or feedback. I'll turn it back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Ms. Craddock. That was really interesting, and thank you for the detail on that. I think it's really a great initiative. I'll open the floor to questions or comments from our members at this time. Councillor Gagné.
Through Madam Mayor,
Thank you.
I just maybe I hope it's already in there, but when you're going to be reporting the capital, are the star rating going to be identified between all the projects for capital budget?
Yeah.
We know it's going to move around, but still, at least we know like these are the major projects that should, depending on the scoring.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll when we bring the proposed list of projects, we're going to bring the justification to you as well, which would include the scoring and why they've scored that way.
Okay, perfect. Thank
You
you.
mean, you mean at budget approval?
Yes.
At approval time?
Hey,
You mean at approval time?
no, when she does her quarterly report.
Oh, sorry. The quarterly report, the quarterly report is just a financial update on the projects that were already approved.
Oh, okay.
But when we come to
Oh,
bring
okay.
the approve one, you'll have the scoring and all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Same thing. Works for me. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Navarro, did you have your? Okay. I'll just ask a question on the authority for budget changes. Is council informed if it's over budget or not, if it's within that 10%?
Yeah, actually, you see back, again, in the reporting cycle. So when I come and bring the quarterly reports, then yes, absolutely,
We'll see where the
Absolutely.
budgets are on
Yep.
that. And then on the rating part of it, on the 4-star, so you had growth-related project, and then the part of that is part of why one would be in a 4-star and one would be a 3-star availability of funding from other levels of government for that particular project during a shorter time span. Like, would that change? So let's say you have a 3-star project and then all of a sudden a funding program opens up that would allow us to get 50% on that. Does that change the rating of the project?
yeah. So then it suddenly becomes a funded project.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that does play into it because they're changing programs all the time.
Yeah.
And there's new stuff coming out all the time. And unfortunately, the municipality is often in a position where we have to find projects that fit their criteria instead of them giving us money for the projects that we really
Right.
need to do. So that's all. I think this is great, and I think it's a great tool not just for us but for future councils, and for us to be able to look first at 5-year, but also at a 10-year cycle. In conjunction with an asset management plan is excellent. So I'd like to thank staff for taking the time to put this together and for thinking ahead and trying to implement something that I think will make us more effective. What are the next steps? Is this a policy that will come back for approval of council?
That's correct, Madam Mayor.
Okay. At the next meeting?
That's correct, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Any other questions before I move on to the next item from our Councillor
I
Cruikshank?
just have a quick question. So through you, Madam Mayor, I really like the policy. I've gone through it over the last few days. It's very detailed. I was thinking, is there merit in adding a provision for reviewing the policy at a set interval, like whether it be every 2 years? Because let's say if we change council in 4 years, that policy, if it's not necessarily brought back there, I'm not sure if there was any merit in reviewing it, whether it be, every 2 years or every 4 years. Because we are planning for this every 5 years, but then it's kind of.
Well, I might have, through you, Madam Mayor, I might have a perspective that, policies would get reviewed when there's a need to review them if they don't work or if there's something that needs to be brought back,
Okay.
such as the ice allocation policy and those kind of things. As a matter of course, I think that an excellent exercise would be, because we have a lot of policies that are just whatever, I think that as a matter of course, we should probably flag the policies that need to be reviewed on a periodic basis and then provide that. And your suggestion, or if I'm reading your mind, of adding a term in any new policy that we have and shall be reviewed and then make a determination at that point might not be a bad idea as well. Maybe once a term for something as big as this, that is, or when need arises. Other smaller policies, I'm not sure. So
Would be like a suggestion for this because like you mentioned, it is a big, big policy for the municipality. So, but
can I ask, Madam Treasurer, would you suggest once a term, a review, or once every 2, go over it?
Yeah, so certainly when I look at not just this type of policy, but other policies, we are sometimes seeing that clause, and they tend to either be sort of 4-year or 5-year. So 5-year because it's probably a nice number, and 4-year probably because it reflects a term. But Yeah, something like that.
So I think what would be a good exercise for us, because I haven't forgotten the deputy mayor's comments on certain organizations reviewing on a regular basis, is maybe having a policy or a policy on policy review.
Okay.
Oh my God,
You know, so we highlight some policies that we have that we use actively, our procurement policy, and I think it's good to review our procurement policy on a regular basis as well, so that everybody's aware of what our authorities are and what council authorities are, and the public knows that. So I think that would be a good exercise for a future meeting. When that comes, it really depends on how, you know, how much time it would take us to have, but I think that would be a good idea.
And the plan itself will be updated annually. So every year we will have a new 5-year outlook.
Yep.
So, you know, it'll be 24 to 28 and then it'll be 25 to 29,
Yep.
whatever. So the actual items on that list are constantly evolving.
Yeah.
Other questions, comments? Okay, so the policy will be brought back for the next meeting. We'll move on to the next item, 5.1.2. The Association of Municipalities of Ontario Conference delegation request, and I'll ask Mr. Burwell
Well,
to speak to that.
I don't know what was sent with you, other than it's that time where we need to have some delegation requests. So, Madam Mayor, I would leave it to you to ask whether there are certain items of interest and ministries of interest that you would want to. If you would like, I'd like to highlight one that we would like to bring forward from West Nipissing Power Generation. Those of you who are lucky to have a tour, I haven't forgotten about the others. But we talked about our plant being rated at 8.6 megs, and we have the capacity with a flick of a switch to get 10 megs. Now, that really is a legislative, not a legislative change, but a change with the organization called IESO. But I believe there might be merit to introducing the subject with the Minister of Energy and discuss the benefit of the power plant to the community. Not just from a power generation and the capacity that we provide, because they're looking at really big ticket items, and we're considered a small producer, but certainly the value is to the dividends that we can potentially have and the sustainability of the facility and the payback of loans a little bit quicker. And so that would be a suggestion. If council's willing, then I certainly would be making a request if council provides me the authority.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me, do any members of council have anything they'd like to add or suggest that we could maybe bring forward for delegations? If there's anything kind of on your radar?
I have a question,
Sure.
but I haven't been to a MO conference yet, so I just went on the Government of Ontario website. I look at their budget, look at their priorities, and there's affordable housing in there. I was wondering for a warehouser, are we at a stage where we can actually ask for a delegation, or not knowing actually how it works? So
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think that we might not be in a position yet to operationalize that project in a very short period of time to be able to make a quality pitch. I don't know whether that's doable. Like, we would have to initiate a plan with our warehouser study. I know we have our housing study, and we can share that with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and indicate that, if there are funds available for affordable housing. I don't know, other than to let them know that 444 other municipalities that we need affordable housing. So unless we have something concrete in a target or a niche proposal that we would like them to discuss, it might be premature. I'm looking at Mr. Poulet.
It might be more of an awareness thing with the minister to at least plant that seed if we're given time with the minister. There's the old mill site plan also talks about commercial retail development as well along Highway 17. And that's going to tie into potentially the bridge work that we're looking at. So it could be a significant project down the road. So awareness might be good at this point. And at least the minister's aware, and in future years, we could potentially then have a firm, detailed plan to go back to the ministry with, that both will look at it from a housing development side and also an economic development side.
Any additional questions, Madam Mayor? I also saw that clean energy, there's a clean energy funding program available. Would the power plant qualify for that?
No.
No, it's not in that area? Okay.
Okay, I'd just like to add something, or actually ask a question and follow up to Councillor Gagne. I believe that last year, Mr. Dupuy at the Chateau had submitted an application for the additional building for the seniors apartments at the Chateau complex. It was unsuccessful with the funding at that time, which I believe was possibly provincial funding program. And that actually does have all the plans and the funding and everything in place. So I don't know whether there would be any place for us as a municipality to maybe bring that project forward because it is ready to go, or whether we would be stepping on toes as far as the Chateau. But if we could help push that project forward, I know that there was only a certain amount of funding available, and it was a good application, but it just didn't. It wasn't selected.
So, to answer you, Madam Mayor, no, that's a perfect project. It doesn't necessarily only have to be projects that affect this corporation. We could be advocating to a minister for a specific issue in our municipality. And certainly we've worked with the Chateau board with respect to the redevelopment and having it fully funded. And we've had joint delegations at I think I remember it being winter, I believe. So it was probably a Roma OGRA back then, but certainly that's acceptable. I think procedurally, if council is willing to provide an application that way, that request could be made to the board of the Chateau and to Mr. Dupuy about this is what we're thinking. Are you willing to do, are you going to support us or whatever? And if they give us a suggestion that no, for whatever reason that we don't know, then we wouldn't. But in general, if we advocate on behalf of a community partner and assist them in any way, shape, or form, this is the municipal council that represents everybody. So that's certainly within the bounds of what you can request.
Okay, Councillor Pellegrini.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, following to this, at our last meeting at Chateau, Mr. Gagne or Mr. Cochin can correct me if I'm wrong, but Mr. Dupuy had mentioned that he wants to wait for the timing to be perfect to apply for those grants because they got a price of 120 million to build. But as we know, everything changed. It could be up to 140 now. So if you apply and you're wrong, so that's what correct me if I'm wrong, that's what he mentioned, that he was to wait for the perfect timing to apply for his grant. So
if I can just reply, I think what I mentioned to the mayor's question is an advocacy role. It's kind of like what we did with MTO, letting them know that, hey, we're coming.
okay.
So it's just to let them know and start the very high level political sales pitch and create the needs so that when the project comes from the Chateau board and Mr. Dupuy, they will have already had and be ready for it, know that the community backs them. So I don't know that by advocating at the front end, unless there's something I'm not aware of where that can burn the opportunity. And if that's the case, then certainly it wouldn't be a good idea. But if it's just to lay the groundwork for a future need, it could happen.
I know what you mean. Thank you.
And I think specifically it was through the not-for-profit housing corporation, like that there's not the redevelopment of the chateau itself, but that there is basically plans ready to go for
Right.
an additional apartment block.
Yeah, and I only cited the redevelopment as,
Yeah,
as an example of
example.
past support. Yeah.
So, I'll connect with the chair of the chateau, tomorrow and through Mr. Dupuy, and just confirm whether that's something that they'd like us to do. Anybody else have any suggestions or comments on that? Councillor Ristol?
Through you, Madam Mayor, just a question for, I guess, yourself and the CEO. I don't want to be too squeaky wheel, but I know you guys have a delegation in February, if I'm not mistaken, for the bridge. Is it worth revisiting again to keep it up, or are we sufficient in what we presented? And what we-
No, we're sufficient at that point, and we're now meeting at the staff stage. And the input and from a staff level, the mayor can speak at the political level, but the backroom staff information I received is they understand the magnitude of the problem that they have here, and they understand that they need to partner with us and find a solution. So it's just a matter of working at the staff level to find the formula that will work for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gagné?
How many delegations can we ask?
16? No, well, we can put in as many requests as we like.
Is it better to ask one or two, and at least we know we'll have strangers, or?
I think they're all, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that they're all kind of evaluated individually by people at the ministry. So you could have one for this ministry, that ministry, 6 ministries, and they wouldn't necessarily overlap, but they are evaluated. So not every delegation that you request will be granted. You have to make the case that there is a need for those types of meetings. So I don't think it hurts to ask, we'd be reasonable about it, because it does take staff time to prepare the materials just to make the delegation request. I don't personally.
Okay, thank you.
Is that correct?
No, that's correct. Yeah, it is there is with this one, with the past one, I advocated on the background too, which I haven't done before. But you can't play those cards and make everything the most urgent thing in the world when 444 other municipalities are going to be doing the same, and we just cancel each other out. So, we can make certain requests, but we also have to make sure that we really are key ones, that we really want to get in front of somebody, that we really do a good job advocating and making sure a delegation is granted.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, so I will follow up with the chair of the Chateau or the not-for-profit housing and Mr. Dupuy this week, just to see if they would like us to go ahead with that. And I think the one in regards to, my opinion is the one in regards to the power plant would be a great idea too. Everybody okay with those? Okay, and just a reminder for those who, I know that several people have registered already. If you haven't, do so soon, because there's not that many hotel rooms in London. So, okay, do you need more direction than that?
No, thank you.
You're good? Okay. Great. Next up, we have the municipal property matter. So we have a couple of items here. The first one is in regards to a counter offer of a property at 130 Montreal Street. And I will pass it to Mr. Barbeau, will probably pass it to Mr. Charm.
Yes. So other than the Costa Road one, I'll Mr. Ducharme will be to deal with the property matters.
Thank you, through Madam Chair. This is and we have a few of these files that are approvals that were given by the prior council that are still moving through the process. This is one of them where we had direction to declare the property surplus and obtain an opinion of value, which came in at $10,000. the owner is, or the proposed purchaser is counter offering an amount of $5,000 based on the price he paid for the abutting lands, having the exact same circumstances. As indicated, the properties in question are landlocked. They are located behind existing residential properties on Ottawa Street. One of them is currently used for parking. The other one is largely rock. It was widowed and isolated by when we sold property to the school board for the expansion of Jeunesse Active. There was this lot left over, which is it's landlocked municipal property that has no access to any other municipal property nor any road. So they'd like to buy it for expansion to their existing holding.
Okay, and I'll ask a question first. May I ask a question? What year was the other property sold?
Last year, 2022.
For 5,000. Okay. And that was done through council? How come they both?
No, it was privately purchased.
Oh, it was private. Okay, somebody else owned it. We didn't own
That's
the one at.
126.
Question? Yeah, Councillor Pellerin?
Yes, Madam Mayor. What size is that block? What size is the property
66 by 132.
to be added to the rest? So I think $10,000 is very reasonable to be in Sturgeon Falls.
Other questions or comments on this? Okay, so you're looking for direction as to whether council is willing to sell at the price of the counter offer, or whether they
That's
would like to go back with the, we have the option to make the counter to the counter, correct?
Entirely within the purview of this council to,
Councillor Pellerin?
How much do we pay for an appraisal?
$200.
And that's covered by the purchaser? And the legal fees and the
Yes.
legal transfer fees?
And do we have legal fees?
Minimal.
Okay.
Councillor Rivard?
For you, Madam Chair, I guess some of what Fern was mentioned, I'm not sure if 10,000, 5,000 is reasonable, but when thinking of that River Valley one for about 4,500, much smaller chunk of property up in River Valley, I think it's still, I'm not sure if it should be valued at the same price, but at the same time, if it's of use to nobody else, are we just going to sit on this property and not sell it if we don't sell it?
Councillor Tessier?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. Are they able to build on that lot? I know they're using for snow, but is that lot big enough to build structures?
No, it has no access to service. It can't be
It
serviced.
can't be serviced
No.
or? Okay, thank you.
Its only value is an add-on to the existing holding.
But they could build a structure and we can now do more than, like, is this a multi-residential property at this time?
Yes,
Is there room for more? What's the zoning on it?
it's not zoned for multi-res.
It's R1.
Yes.
Could they apply to get the zoning changed?
As I've indicated, they can't get water or sewer
Okay.
to this property, so it can't be serviced, so the only thing they could build on it would be an accessory structure of some kind, not a dwelling.
Councillor Rivard?
Sorry, just add on to through you, Madam Chair. So it wouldn't be merged in the future. That's what you're saying? Because if it were merged, would they be able to extend water from their current property? Kind of like still
Yes, they could extend water from their current property.
same like it could connect to the sewer as well if it was
Potentially.
merged, right?
Yeah, it would depend, this property is virtually solid rock. I don't know whether that would be dependent on the,
Yeah, it's like a hill.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just need to get an idea from, and does this need to be a voter would come back once you have?
we would be, if I had direction, we would actually enter into an agreement of purchase and sale, and there would be a bylaw that would come back to council.
So, look, I kind of sit a little bit with Councillor Pellerin and Councillor Rivard, like I don't think we should be underselling our properties. I don't think $10,000 is really a lot of money for an area of land that size. Again, as Councillor Rivard said, in comparison to the property that we just sold in River Valley, which was a far smaller piece of property in River Valley and not in Sturgeon. And it was, I thought it was just narrow. Okay.
66 feet long.
Okay. Anyway, so, it's, anyway, we just need to decide whether we would like to accept that counter offer or whether we'd like to confirm on the price that was on the price of the valuation. So, I guess I will ask just a show of hands as to who would be okay with going with 5,000 sale price on that piece of property. Okay, and stay at the 10,000. So the direction is to that we were going to go from on price. And the next one.
The next one is a request for a lot addition at 61 Riverfront, partially to cure an encroachment of an existing structure, and also to permit a small amount of additional land to build another accessory structure. And I think I provided a copy of the sketch showing the location of the existing encroachment of the current garage. It's only encroaching a small portion. However, they would like to build another shed a little farther down in their property. So they're asking for 5 meters, 16 feet roughly, from street to north boundary.
And the depth?
The property is, it's, I don't know if the depth says that, about 179 meters.
Ooh.
It's a really deep property.
Okay. So there is a memo on file with some pictures that I'm sure everybody's had a chance to review. Any questions? So at this point, you would just be going out to get a price and starting this whole process. Okay. Any questions or comments on that, on this particular file? Oh, Monsieur St. Louis?
You forgot I was here?
No, I didn't see your hand. It was Councillor Gagne helped us there.
So my only question will be is I know that area has a parking lot-ish or a little driveway for the people to go utilize the soccer field or the park or whatever. Will this impede in that area?
Through you, Madam Chair. You'll see on the drawing that was attached that the parking area is delineated. It's quite a far distance away from what is being sought. And it wouldn't impede on any of the use of the property by the public at all. This location is just bush.
Thank you.
And how much land would they actually need just to cure the encroachment and give them the proper setbacks from their lot line?
About 2 meters.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so staff is looking for direction as to whether to get, I guess, first evaluation on the property.
Oh, no, first, are we willing to convey the?
Okay, are we willing to, sorry,
5
thank you.
meters?
So, are we willing to convey the 5 meters? I'm just a little confused as to why they want the extra 10 feet, whatever.
To
but
build another shed.
They have a lot of room to build sheds so on their property. I'm just saying, they don't need the extra 3 meters to build this shed necessarily, right?
I've not been in their backyard.
Okay.
I don't know.
So,
I can only go by what is being requested.
okay. So council, would you like to look at the process for conveying the full 5 meters? Show of hands. Okay. Go. Okay, and then the next item is for the property on Bristol.
Through you, Your Worship, as indicated in the memo, but I think that this council has indicated that we want to have a process for starting to bring forward properties that we may wish to consider surplus in order to consolidate some of the areas and some of the funds and the resources as to where we actually want to put our resources. And so one of those properties that we're bringing forward to you that is evident is the former excess trailer parking site that was formerly called Lang's Park, that is behind just by the railway tracks. You see it's 2.86 acres. I think that it could have excellent commercial value and be an excellent commercial opportunity for somebody, or potentially even some housing. But if it just sits in our hands vacant as it is, then it really doesn't serve anything. There's also fencing that was put there for the step fiddle with electrical, and it's quite in shambles. And so it has become quite the eyesore. And so this might be land that we can use to stimulate some development over there. I don't know that I have any more. If there are any questions.
Questions, comments? Councillor Ristoul?
Thought someone beat me down the table. Through you, Madam Mayor, I agree with the recommendation of the conclusion. I just want to make sure that we're, like the CEO mentioned, it's valuable land, and that when we have the discussion on setting a reserve bid for it, that we're being, fair to the taxpayers who will receive through us the sale. But yeah, it's a prime piece of land, and if we are looking at, and I always think when we look at disposing of lands or sales is going to be processes generated from there, whether it be commercial land, and then that adds to the tax base as well. So
Right.
it kind of helps everything move forward. So I appreciate the recommendation.
I'm trying to think, Councillor Ristoul, whether we've never brought anything back once we've gotten an opinion of value or an actual appraisal, a legal appraisal, and even the small ones, I think we bring them back here, but definitely massive pieces of land like that or other assets that the council contemplates declaring surplus, we certainly bring it back to you for direction as to how you wish to proceed, what method of sale you wish to proceed. And that certainly will be the case in this instance.
Again, I didn't want to insinuate that had taken place. I just was commenting on this. Thank you.
Is there access to, sorry, I have one question. Is there access to that property from the end of Railroad Street, or does, Railway Street, or does Railway Street stop just short of the property?
I don't believe there's access now, no.
Other questions or comments? Councillor Tessier?
Through you, Madam Mayor, does the property have like sewer and water
Yes.
there? Okay.
Other questions? Councillor Pellerin?
Yes, Madam Mayor, just, is this site still the snow dumping site?
No, it hasn't been for a few years, so sorry, Madam Mayor. We use vacant land that is behind the Comfort Inn that was built by the developer of the Comfort Inn, still owns vacant land that is behind there between Larche and the Comfort Inn and beside us, and that's where we use the snow dump now.
Good, thank you.
Councillor Ward?
Through you, Madam Chair. To, I guess, compliment what Jay was, or Mr. Barbo was mentioning, was that I'd also like to see this property sold and turn into something that's quite the eyesore when you're walking, driving around. It's one of the first things you see when you come into Sturgeon as well. And that fence is falling apart. It'd be really nice to see some affordable housing with my ideas, but I know at the one economic development meeting, we were mentioning how nonprofit housing or developers sometimes they prefer if you could kind of gift land for affordable housing because it makes it easier for them to spearhead development. right? I'm not too sure. Obviously, that's not the ideal route because we're not getting any income back, but would that be something that we could look at possibly, or in order to try and spearhead some affordable housing?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I hate this expression, but to be honest with you, certainly. There's a concept of bonusing or what have you, but depending on the organization that would want to develop that is available, council would need to then dedicate that land as affordable housing. And then if that's, then we wouldn't declare it surplus. We would then look at strategies for trying to develop it as a affordable housing. I'm not 100% sure. There's affordable housing right next to it. The Anishinaabeg community have affordable housing down the just adjacent to it on Railway. I don't know of best use, whether since you're near commercial now, whether you get more activity or bang for your buck, just leaving it to the market and seeing what commercial development can happen. But certainly that is a council discussion, if that's what you want. But, you know, at the end of the day, I'm sorry for saying that, you know, we're bringing forward properties that we feel surplus to our needs. Now, how we get rid of them is entirely council's decision, but our position would be that the easiest way would be to sell this to a potential developer and create some commercial activity. But if council wishes to go a different route, that's fine. We do have affordable housing, you know, land, you know, at the end of Third, you know, and that subdivision and that. So I just think that we probably want to give some consideration as to how we handle that and where we checkerboard that kind of those kinds of development, whether we want to put them here, there, or whatever. So I think it would need a lot more thought.
Okay.
No, thank you. So is it kind of that it would potentially take a long time if it were the affordable housing, if we already have property for affordable housing and nothing's happened? Is that because this was one of the main lots when we brought up the land disposition strategy that I would have liked to see either sold or something happen with it, because it is an eyesore and it's a large chunk of land in the heart of our community. So I think I might agree that it might be better to go commercially instead. If we already do have land and nothing's happening with it, then I don't think it'd be smart to give more land for that may not happen either for the foreseeable future.
Right. You know, I suppose you know, if somebody approaches us who has an interest in it once it's declared surplus to be used in that manner, I suppose if we receive information, then a consideration would be brought back to council to alter our thoughts on it. But at this point, the decision is, do we need it ourselves? We're not in the housing business, regardless of whether it's affordable or expensive. And so I think you know, our recommendation is to declare it surplus.
Okay. Yes.
Are we done talking? I just want to seek direction on something. Oh, Councillor St. Louis.
Councillor St. Louis?
Maybe.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Mr. Barbeau, correct me if I'm wrong. However, if we decide to surplus this to whomever developer that decides whether they go commercial, they can also apply for rezoning. And if they so choose to build homes and or apartment buildings or blocks, that would kind of, you know, satisfy some of the not affordable housing, but it would definitely add more, you know, homes into West Nipissing, more taxes to West Nipissing. And I mean, one of the issues that we're definitely facing in West Nipissing is homes for the elderlies. So with Metro just across the street, and it's not Sands anymore, whatever that store is, and then the dollar store not far, and the Canadian Tire not far, I think if somebody developer purchases it and, you know, asks for rezoning into a housing as opposed to commercial, that's definitely something that we could look at. So it doesn't mean that it needs to be commercial, but it means that we would surplus it to a developer, and it's up to them to choose what they see fit to do with it, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
I had the same thoughts as Councillor Rivard when I first thought about this property as far as being an appropriate place for whether it's affordable geared to income or below market rent housing because of its location central to employers, to grocery stores, to shops. It's a location where one could live without having to necessarily have a vehicle. It's kind of close to everything. In some of the conferences that I've attended, it's clear that the priorities of both provincial and federal levels of government in the fundings that they're putting out is really geared towards housing. And in my opinion, it would be nice to make sure that we do have some land set aside specifically for those types of projects when they become available, whether it's this piece of property or whether there are other pieces of property within our holdings that would be appropriate. I think it's really important that we have something that if opportunities come to partner with, whether it's DSAB, whether it's organizations like the Ontario Aboriginal Housing Corporation or whoever, that we actually have some land that we can leverage. So I think it would be great to get a valuation on it. I think once we know what the value of the property is as it stands, as a commercial property, that may impact what we decide to do. Getting a valuation alone does not commit us to selling or even declaring it surplus.
No, I believe you want to declare it
Declare it
surplus.
surplus. But declaring it surplus does not mean
Doesn't
that
mean you're selling
we
it.
are selling it.
No.
It just means that it's kind of up for discussion. And once we have the kind of facts, we can have a more detailed discussion and maybe identify some of those other lands that might be more appropriate for housing, that for those of us who'd like to see something like that set aside. If we know that there are other properties there, then, perhaps that kind of sways the opinion on whether this is good to be sold. So just looking for direction from council as to whether Madame Toucharme, whether it would come back next meeting to be declared surplus, and then you'd start the process with
Yes, I could bring back a resolution to declare it surplus, but can I get direction to move forward with the obtaining an opinion of value at this time?
Is that first?
It can run concurrent.
Okay. So would we like Madame Toucharme to move forward with getting an opinion of value on this property? Yes, thank you. And would we like her to bring back a resolution next meeting to declare the land surplus? All good. Thank you very much for the great questions and great discussions on that. And then we have one other item under General Government Committee of the Whole, and that is Gautier Road. And that was an addendum. So you'll either have to pull it up from what was sent to you today, or there should be paper copies on your desk.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. This is my bad. I had this on my desk and I neglected to put it on the actual agenda. It wasn't a last minute thing. I forgot. This was a purchase that came from abutting landowners. The property is located on Gautier Road, and the proposed buyer has provided quite a lengthy explanation of how it came to be. But as I indicated in my note, it's basically what we call a widowed parcel. It got left out of a transfer at some point along the way. It got taken by the former township of Springer for taxes, and it's lying directly between these two people's properties on Gautier Road. They would like to each purchase half of it, just as an add-on to their existing properties. It's about 85 feet wide and about 300 feet deep. It's a little over an acre. However, it doesn't meet the minimum lot requirements in terms of frontage for development. So they would like to buy it and split it between them as an add-on to their properties.
Okay, question from that to Councilor Pilgrim.
Yes, Madam Mayor. The municipality owns the property,
Yes, it was a tax sale which was vested back in the 1980s.
so it would be a buildable lot.
At that time. Not in-
Still,
It wouldn't meet the current requirements in terms of lot frontage for
yeah,
that area.
how big is it?
85 by about 300.
So it's
Hang on.
it's big enough to build on it. I'll minor variance or whatever.
If they were able to obtain a septic permit, probably, yeah.
So it's still, we could still sell it as a lot or go that way.
It is currently being cultivated by the owner and it is located in the A1 zone, which parcel fragmentation, land fragmentation is discouraged in that area. New lots are usually prohibited in the agricultural zone. So as a lot addition, then we wouldn't be going against our own policies in terms of lot creation. No questions?
Councilor River.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I had the benefit of visiting this property last year for my other work-related stuff, and I was very surprised when I looked at my mapping and saw this little parcel. I thought for sure it was their own property, and then they explained the story, and for that, it looks like agricultural land, and I think it should probably be owned by those, the Shovers and the Goatees. Or selling that, I think even if we were to sell it, it would look a little odd for someone to develop that.
Any other questions or comments? The only thing I would say is, like straight lines. They want to split it just because they want to be nice to each other. Like, it looks like it should just be part of the Lebeau lands, like that's, makes a nice box.
Except for the Showers are farming it.
Okay. Anyway, so is there any objections with Madame Sherm moving forward to the magic she does behind the scenes?
This,
Councillor, right?
yes, I would just like one last question. How do you appraise it?
I would appraise it as a lot addition and would direct the, he would give us a value and I would tell him what the proposed intention of it is.
So that's valued less than if it was a square foot lot.
That's because in that zone, it's not developed.
Well, it does clean up the map, so just a show of hands if Madame Sherm can go ahead and make her magic happen behind the scenes. Okay. Good for you?
Thank you very much.
Okay, good. We'll move on to the regular portion of our meeting. Excuse me, the first item on the is the consent agenda.
It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Pellerin. The items listed on the consent agenda for June-6, 2023 be accepted as presented.
Questions or comments? Anybody want to pull anything out? So, okay, all those in favor? Carried. And the next item is bylaw to establish council vacancy policy.
It is moved by Councillor Pellerin, seconded by Councillor Gagne. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-47 being a bylaw to adopt an amended to adopt a council vacancy policy, council vacancy appointment policy shall come into force and take effect on the day it's passed.
Okay, so we discussed this at our last meeting during our committee of the whole portion of the meeting. There were a couple of changes which were and additions that were asked by council to be made, and I believe those have been made by Madam Clerk, including just being more specific in regards to replacement of the mayor's seat, that members of council could run without forfeiting their seat on council. So if everybody's had a chance to take a look, is there any further questions, comments, or requested changes to this bylaw? Councillor Teskey?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I had mentioned about the for nomination, like we had
The
before.
25
Is it on there?
signatures.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know, I I didn't
Because
hear
it's in the
consensus on that.
minutes.
Oh, I
particular-
thought there was consensus
Okay,
on that. Yeah.
my apologies.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, so that will, we can still approve at this meeting with that
Yes,
amendment.
and I'll add it in. if
Okay,
it's,
so I'd like you just to make a motion. It needs to be amended, right? So if you'd like to make a motion to amend, to add,
I would, well, we're not changing the resolution.
uh, well, if we're changing the document, we're not approving the document as is. So we would have to make an amendment to the,
Yeah, the policy is amended.
Yeah, the policy, the
The
bylaw
policy,
as amended, not the resolution. So we're not amending the resolution, we're amending the bylaw, the
does
amended
that need to
bylaw.
be a motion to amend the,
I can just add the word amended bylaw
okay.
onto the resolution.
Okay, so it doesn't
Bylaw.
need to be voted on by all of council?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I just want to note it was mentioned in
Yes,
the minutes.
Yes,
so-
yes,
That's okay.
yeah, I'm sorry. My bad.
Okay, thank you.
other questions or comments? Thank you for catching that, Councillor Tessier. Okay. So motion on the floor with just the small amendment by Councillor Tessier. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. Sorry, the next item, moving on to new business. We have a resolution to approve some noise bylaw exemptions.
It's moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Pellerin. Be it resolved that council authorizes exemptions to the West Nipissing noise bylaw for the following dates and locations. 20 Edward Street, June 24th until 1 a.m. and 598 Dutrisac Road on August 26th until 1 a.m.
Questions or comments on those? Okay, Councillor Rivard.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I appreciate that people are going through the right avenues to do so instead of asking for forgiveness, say if someone were to complain after. But I was wondering, like, do these come very often? Should there be some sort of administrative fee, a very small fee just for associating these, or is that out of line, out of question? Just because, say, if we were to receive 20, 30 of these in a year, is that taking quite a bit of emotional time, or is it pretty quick?
Any fees and charges is within council's authority to impose. That would mean an amendment to the noise bylaw to include a fee in the bylaw. We get about 10 a summer.
I was kind of looking at it as like almost a permit, similar to any other permit, right? But I do understand that then some people may just not do this and ask for forgiveness, which would cause more problems. So I'm not sure which one would be more reasonable. Thanks.
Thank you. I do have a question, and this is, are these communicated with the OPP so that if they receive noise complaints on that night, they can say, no, sorry?
That is correct.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Any other questions or comments on that? Yeah, sorry, Councillor Rivard, if you do want to bring that back for discussion, we can do it as an agenda request item. If it's-
I feel very strongly about it.
It doesn't want to do it enough to have to fill out the form.
Permit party.
Yeah. Okay, so I will put it to a vote then. All those in favor of granting the 2 noise bylaw exemptions? Carried, thank you. Okay. Resolution to set our council meetings for July and August. I can't believe it's summertime already. In the summer, traditionally, we've moved to, our council has moved to just 1 meeting per month for both July and August. So I believe staff has made, provided some proposed dates for those, and I will let Madame Clerk read the motion.
It
Thank
is
you.
moved by Councillor Pellerin and seconded by Councillor Gagne. Whereas at a meeting held on June the 6th, council considered the proposed dates for the council summer meetings for July and August 2023. Be it resolved that the following dates be set for the meetings of council to be held on Tuesday, July 11th at 6:30 p.m. and Tuesday, August 15th at 6:30 p.m.
Okay, thank you. I just have one question. So what happens, as that's now the second Tuesday, what happens to your planning meetings? Because planning
That's a
meetings are
discussion,
usually.
that's a discussion for planning on Tuesday.
Okay. Well, okay, I think that's a fair question. We'll have to bring that up. Okay, does any questions or comments on that? Does anybody have issues with those dates that might be a problem? Councillor Restoll?
The issues guy, trying to find dates. Seems like I'm the only one, but I'll be on a beach in Mexico on the 11th of July. So I don't think Wi-Fi is very good at the hotel we're at.
Oh.
Sounds very good.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Oh, yeah, Mexico's great. Don't worry about it. You can
Great Wi-Fi.
put a shirt on.
For the 15th of
yeah.
August.
You know, there are options to do it on, I would imagine the 18th if we wanted to. Does anybody have the, I'd like to make it as, I mean, we're only doing one a month, so I'd like to make it as, is there any issues from the staff perspective? Doing it July 18th instead?
The staff retreat on the 18th.
Okay, so July 11th.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, and
Doesn't
any
have to
issues?
be Tuesday.
Yeah, I know, but Tuesdays, no,
Yes.
consistency.
Jason.
Yeah, otherwise it'll get
Supervisor.
confusing. And August 15th. Any issues there?
He's in Jamaica.
Declare you the problem child there. So August, okay, so Councillor Restool will hopefully join us from a beach in Mexico, and if not, we will understand. And otherwise, everybody good with those dates? Okay, all those in favor?
Sorry, Madam Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor
That's
St. Louis.
okay. Before I say I'm good, I know I do have a week's vacation in July and one in August, but I'm not sure when, so I will verify and let you know.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. We didn't vote before Councillor St. Okay, thank you very much.
It's moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Restool. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-52, being a bylaw to regulate the use of public beaches within the municipality of West Nipissing, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Okay, again, this is another item that was discussed at Committee of the Whole last week. We went through it in detail. We did talk a little bit about dogs and some other items, but I think that the consensus at the time was to leave it as it was presented to us. And if we want to bring it back to address any issues once it's kind of up and running, this at least gives our bylaw enforcement officer the tools to move forward. Does anybody have any other questions, comments, or proposed amendments before we move forward? Councilor Rivard?
To you, Mayor. I guess in response to those dogs issues, I spoke with a few people at dogs, and I was wondering, like, I guess a question for Mr. Poulet. Say at the Sturgeon Falls Beach, if they go off to the right of the beach to where that inlet is for the town drinking water, is that a okay place for people to let their dog go in the water?
Yeah, that would be in that case. And I think the Sturgeon Falls Beach is probably the most problematic one to allow pets or animals to be swimming amongst people. So, but you're right, there's a lot of undeveloped area that's in that section, so they can certainly, as long as it's not in the swimming areas. Yeah.
Thanks, yeah.
We want to bring that back and like mark it somehow like that it is permitted there, because if people know there is a spot, but that's for another, it's a kind
I
of,
think
it's a
operationally
different
we can
thing.
handle it.
Yeah,
Okay. I think from an operations perspective, we can delineate some signage. It doesn't necessarily need to be a
Dog friendly
bylaw.
swimming
The
area.
bylaw is
whatever.
restrictive
Yeah.
on penalty. This would be an allowing.
Yeah, they seem to agree with that location.
Okay, any other questions or comments in regards to the beach bylaw? Councilor Pellerin?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. While we're on the subject, I'm just curious, do we have a bylaw like for parks in general and splash pads for dogs and
Through you, Madam Mayor, we are going to come back to council with a parks and playgrounds bylaw. We were going to incorporate it as part of the beach bylaw, but we felt that they were very much separate. So we will be coming back with a parks and playground bylaw, and we'll include splash parks in there.
Good, thank you, because I actually saw one and it was sand and they dug a little hole and they buried it and the kids are playing 100 feet from there. So,
Question? Very good, good. I'd like to put that to a vote then. All in favor of the beach bylaw as presented? Carried. Next up, Madam Clerk.
Is moved by Councillor Restoul and seconded by Councillor Gagne. Be it resolved that council authorize the Living Community Centre's request to remove the recycling bins from the park.
Okay, again, we discussed this last week in committee of the whole. Any further questions or comments on this? Okay. Oh, sorry, Councillor Pellerin.
I got a few phone calls about that. I know it's in Mr. Cochin's corner there. The garbage are being picked up in Lavigne to a private, and apparently it's got about 100 customers. And there's quite a few of them that use those bins for recycling. The idea that I heard is if they leave, people are not going to drive to the dump to go do their recycling. Quite a few mentioned the land is bigger than we think over there, so the bins could be moved away from the rink. I don't know, I'm just saying. Are we rushing this decision?
I wasn't at the meeting, but no, the land, sure, there's a lot of land if you want to put the, and I'm being facetious, the bins in front, where the recreation is planning on happening, but that's a park. It's a playground, it's a rink, it's a park. With respect to recycling, there are, the majority of the municipalities or the rural residents bring their recycling to dumps. Those that it's not conducive, all roads go through Verner, and there's still a recycling there. And so for people to make a comment, and I don't mind targeting 100, that they're going to be throwing recycling in with their garbage because it's inconvenient for them, and that's more of a reflection on them, Councillor Pellerin, than and if it is caught, then we would reserve the right to not, pick up their garbage. I know it's a private contractor, it's not our contractor, but if we start doing audits, which we do on occasion, we're required to, and we catch that, there could be some issues with respect to not accepting that garbage because you're supposed to recycle. So, yes, we would want to have a lot of services all over, but I believe that in general, the community has a vision and a plan for beautification and for community living, and I believe this would be the less of two evils. So, no, I think that, I'll tell you from Deer Lake, I often use the Verner recycling. I often use it, for sure. And there's one in Field as well, if you can't, but that's training your brain to be environmentally conscious. And I'm sure a lot of people are throwing cans of paint, and they shouldn't be doing that either, but we need to, provide them with whatever, and recycling bins in the center of a town like that. We had no problem with it. It was a request by the past council, but now there's a request from, people who are active to advance the community of living. So my suggestion is, stack it up, store it, and when you're going through Verner, and I believe everybody shops at the co-op, so you can go in with recycling, empty that, then you have a full trunk to buy your groceries at the co-op grocery store. So it's win-win.
No, they shop at Cochin and Lebanon. No, I understand, I just thought I'd bring it up.
You know, I'll say like do you want to give the news?
No, you can-
Okay, so they are actually going to be breaking ground on the construction of the park in the next week or 10 days, week and a half. And this is really exciting news. You know, there's been a lot of work put in by a lot of members of the community to make this area a hub for community activity and the fundraising that's been done. So, you know, I like I've always support the efforts that the community's made to make this better. And at the end of the day, you know, there is facilities available about the living in the burner dump. And what is being planned for that location is a much more useful for the community as a whole and really does a lot to build it up. So I'll leave it with that. But anybody else have any questions or comments on that? Councillor Restool?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, thank you. Just, I don't know anything about what happens there in terms of the private collection of garbage. I don't know if that's a opportunity for whoever does this to expand their services into recyclables as well, or not. I don't know, just putting that out there. But I think change sometimes is difficult and people don't always want to accept change. And we had the same thing in Sturgeon when we had the recycling at the, behind the complex, and it got moved and people kind of adjusted and they grew from there. I think it's great to hear that there's the groundbreaking for the community recreation area there, and that's evolution of our communities, right, all across. And it's good to see it happening in Living, and I think doing it the right way and keeping it focused on the recreation part and not having waste or recycling there at the same time it's good. It's moving forward. So I just wanted to share those thoughts.
Anybody else? So I will put that to a vote. The resolution's been read in, so for the recycling bins, can I see a show of hands? All those in favor, please. Carried. Thank you.
It's moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Restool. Be it resolved that council authorizes the use of the Marcel Noel Hall on June 22nd, 2023 at no charge.
So there's a letter here received from Club Richelieu with their request. We have done similar things for other organizations in the community, including the food bank. So I'll just open the floor to questions, comments about this request. Okay, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. Do you want to agree? So I'll take them over in a seconder for a 10-minute recess, please. Councillor Gagne, Councillor Cruikshank.
It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Cochrane. At approximately 8 p.m., a motion was tabled for a 10-minute recess.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Figured. Are we back? Not muted?
Yeah.
Okay, welcome back. We'll move on with the new business, and we are on to 6.4.6, Madam Clerk.
It is moved by Councillor Rivard and seconded by Councillor Nicol. Be it resolved that the equipment described herein be declared surplus to the West Nipissing Municipality, and be further resolved, Council hereby authorizes the disposal of the equipment. 2006 440 Zamboni propane unit.
Okay, information's in your package. Councillor Rivard?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Is this the infamous giant tiger Zamboni? No? It's one that
You,
I,
Madam Mayor, no, it's, believe it or not, it's not. The giant tiger Zamboni is still well and working properly, and we use it periodically for outdoor rink hockey or resurfacing. This is the one that we replaced, and we had it assessed, and the other models that we have as backup are in better shape than this one.
Okay, Councillor Rivard?
sorry, just to add on, it would be with the new field rink coming, there's no, I know we used to use one sometimes over there for that field outdoor tournament. Is there any possibility like of keeping it for something like that? Or?
So there's a limit to how many spare Zambonis or ice resurfacers we can have. And we have one that can be utilized in either arenas because it has happened, I wouldn't say regularly, but it has happened where we've had to use our spare. And then we have an additional spare that we can float to outdoor rinks. So this would be another model that I don't think we would just be using up storage space, and we're getting some decent return on the surplus equipment.
Nice, thank you.
Okay, other questions? Councillor Tessier?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. When you say you use one of the spare ones for outdoor surfacing, is it just for events, or can it be used to assist with the ice surfacing, let's say for river, field, when it's requested, or?
So again, through you, Madam Mayor, we would not use an ice resurfacer to build ice. So that's done the conventional way for outdoor rinks by watering. But once the ice is completely built, we could use them. But keep in mind that they have to be stored in heated garages at night, and the risk of all the water remaining in the tank and then the lines freeze. So when we do use them for the field carnival or the living hockey tournament, we have to ensure that the equipment is stored in a heated garage. So we do tend to be selective where it's required and plan accordingly.
And I do have a few more questions. Is that Zamboni in working order?
It is not in working order. We would require a significant amount of work on it for it to be in proper working order.
And is there a resale value assigned to that you're looking at, since there's repairs?
Yes, so we've gotten a value of $8,500 as a return on that piece of equipment.
Those are all your questions, Councillor Tessier?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, and that 8,500, is that confirmed, or that's an estimate until it goes out?
That's pretty well a firm number that we've received, yes.
Councillor Pellerin?
Thank you. I'm just curious, I would assume this goes out to tender.
So in this case, we have the supplier that sold us the equipment, the Zamboni that we purchased, offered to buy the used one off of us instead of, because we did not have the trade-in option when we bought the Zamboni. So the suppliers offered to refurbish it, and the fair value for that piece of equipment is $8,500. That would be, and they come from Southern Ontario and they pick it up, they put on a flatbed, and then they do all the work required to it and repurpose it, or they'll use it for parts.
Other questions or comments? Okay, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next up is FedNor application. Madam Clerk.
It is moved by Councillor Rivard and seconded by Councillor Nicol. Be it resolved that Council for the West Nipissing Municipality hereby authorizes the Director of Economic Development and Community Services to submit a funding application to the Green Municipal Fund and to FedNor to complete the Phase 2 environmental assessment of the Weyerhaeuser lands.
There's a brief memo there. Mr. Wild, have any other information you'd like to share with us?
Self-explanatory.
Okay, questions or comments? Councilor Rivard?
Sorry, Conseil Tessier, I think was first here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay, go
Oh,
ahead.
that's
looked
okay.
at
I'll go
Lisa's.
after, it's fine.
Okay. Thank you through your manager. Would we be able to move forward with the environmental assessment, like get the process going while we wait for the potential funding, or does this mean that it kind of has to wait till?
Not through you, Madam Mayor. It depends on the fund. I think we would probably wait. Typically, they don't like you to start at least until you've had the application. I think with FedNor, you're able to, once you have the application, the green fund, I'm not sure if it's the same. We'd have to investigate that.
Yeah, I know, again, through you, Madam Mayor, that the FedNor application, once it's submitted and stamped, we can recover all costs from that date on. The Green Municipal Fund is a different fund. It's the first time since I've been here that we're applying for it, so we will look at that. But generally, approvals must be confirmed, or we're assuming the costs that are incurred. So that's a risk to us if we're not funded. So in this case, there are two funding agencies that we potentially qualify for. So if the project is estimated to be in total 225,000, we're going to apply to both, and we're going to try to maximize the amount of funding we can get from both agencies, and aim for 75 to 90 cent dollars if we can.
Okay, are there maximum funding? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Tessier.
That's okay, thank you through you, Madam Mayor. The environment assessment, is that the soil study, or is the soil study already done?
There has been, through you, Madam Mayor, there has been a phase 1 completed. Now we need to do a bit more work to have a full view, and the phase 2 will determine how we can proceed with that property. Yeah,
Soil study. Okay.
correct. Yeah, more in-depth analysis.
So in the budget, the amount we were estimating for this was 200 or 225?
Was 200, and council had approved 100,000 as part of the ECDEV budget. But now that we've looked and potential 2 funding agencies, we're hoping to get more than our share, so that we're not fully utilizing the 100,000 for this project. So we're going to do our best.
Any other question? Councilor Pellerin?
Yes, Madam Chair. So I understand good. It's the final phase. Once we get this study good to go.
Right, phase 2, it's usually the final phase, but it could tell you what remediation needs to happen as well. So it really depends on what is found, right? So if we may have to remove contaminated soil if that's, so at that point, or act accordingly as is where is, but yeah.
Okay, Councilor Rivard?
Thank you through your manager. The follow-up to my first question was, it's great news that we're moving forward with the project, but I was just wondering, what are these timelines kind of for a fund? Like, when would we expect a response? Would it be?
So we are going to submit our applications for funding, and concurrently we will be submitting some requests for quotes from qualified engineering firms that will help us as consultants lead us through this process, because it's a very technical process. And then once that's done, they'll help us develop the scope of work and the RFP from the engineering firms themselves that will be doing the phase two. It potentially, from what we've been told, could take up to 9 to 12 months to fully complete and have a full detailed phase two. We're hoping it can get done sooner because phase one's been done and there's a lot of data that they can work with. But we'll endeavor to get this done. And so time is of essence because we obviously want to get some of the boreholes done before winter hits so that some of the soil analysis can be done. And, but it is a tedious process to get through.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Okay, so we'll put the resolution to a vote. All those in favor, going forward with the applications? Carried. Okay, the next item is disposal of surplus equipment from the fire department. Madam Clerk.
It is moved by Councillor Rivard and seconded by Councillor Nichol. Be it resolved that equipment described herein be declared surplus for the West Nipissing Fire Service, and be it further resolved, the council hereby authorizes the disposal of the following surplus equipment: one 1994 Yamaha VK snow machine, 2000 Polaris snow machine, and a 1990 Pierce ladder truck.
And there's a memo in your package. I'll take questions or comments on that. Councilor Pellerin.
Just curious, when and where is that going to be advertised?
It's a good question, and there might be a local desire for snow machines. I'll have a conversation with the fire chief. Not 100% sure there's a lot of need for a 1990 ladder truck. So we might have a look at that. Now, oftentimes we go to Gov Deals with machinery or trucks, but when it's something that may be of interest to the local population, we'll probably localize the snow machines shortly. I can't speak to the fire chief and what he has on it.
Sure. For the right price.
Other questions or comments? Okay, and the process for the fire truck is more formal through a government site or?
We usually list it at Gov Deals. Elisa or Ms. Craddock might know more, but that's.
Yeah, it was Gov Deals. I know that the fire chief was talking about there is a similar platform that is for fire specific, but yeah, just so that we can reach other fire services if.
Okay. Okay, anybody else? Okay, we'll put that to a vote. All those in favor? Carried.
It is moved by Councillor Nichol and seconded by Councillor Rivard. Be it resolved that the mayor be authorized to proclaim the month of June 2023 as Pride Month in the municipality of West Nipissing.
Thank you. I do have the proclamation that I will read in English and Councillor Vanier will read in French, and then we'll put that to a vote. Whereas the municipality of West Nipissing supports the rights of every citizen to experience equality and freedom from discrimination. And whereas all people, regardless of age, gender identity, race, color, religion, marital status, national origin, sexual orientation, physical challenges, have the right to be treated on the basis of their intrinsic value as human beings. And whereas June is recognized as Pride Month in Canada and around the world as an opportunity to celebrate the contributions of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning and two-spirited individuals, to reflect on the trials of the LGBTQ community has endured and overcome, and to recommit to the importance of diversity and equity and inclusion in our community. And whereas the LGBTQ2S+ communities contribute to the cultural, social, civic, and economic successes of the municipality of West Nipissing, and whereas awareness and education are vital to end discrimination and violence based on gender identity and sexual orientation, the municipality of West Nipissing celebrates the ongoing efforts to bring awareness to the continued evolution of the West Nipissing Pride movement, while acknowledging there is still much work to be done. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of West Nipissing Council hereby proclaim the month of June 2023 as Pride Month in West Nipissing, and encourage our residents to reflect on the continued work being done by members of the LGBTQ2S+ community and their allies to ensure equity, dignity, protection, and freedom, and to celebrate their contribution, which enhance our municipality and its communities.
Merci, Madame la Maire. Attendu que la municipalité du Nipissing-Ouest appuie le droit de chaque citoyen de vivre l'égalité et d'être à l'abri de la discrimination, et attendu que toutes les personnes, quels que soient les âges, leur identité de genre, leur race, leur couleur, leur religion, leur état civil, leur origine nationale, leur orientation sexuelle ou leur handicap physique, ont le droit d'être traités sur une base de leurs valeurs intrinsèques en tant qu'être humain, et entendu que le mois de juin est reconnu comme le mois de la fierté au Canada et dans le monde entier, et qu'il a l'occasion de célébrer les contributions des personnes lesbiennes, gays, bisexuelles, transgenres, queer ou en questionnement et bispirituellement LGBTQ 2S+, de réfléchir aux épreuves de la communauté LGBTQ 2S+, à endurer et surmonter et à réaffirmer l'importance de la diversité et de l'équité et de l'inclusion au sein de notre communauté, et que la communauté LGBTQ2S+, contribue au succès culturel, social, civique et économique dans la municipalité de Nipissing-Ouest, et entendu que la sensibilisation et l'éducation sont essentielles pour mettre fin à la discrimination et à la violence fondée sur l'identité de genre et d'orientation sexuelle. La municipalité du Nipissing-Ouest célèbre les efforts continus de sensibilisation à l'évolution continue du mouvement de la fierté de Nipissing-Ouest, tout en reconnaissant qu'il y a encore beaucoup de travail à faire. En conséquence, il est résolu, les membres du Conseil du Nipissing-Ouest proclament par la présence le mois de juin 2023, mois de la fierté dans le Nipissing-Ouest, et encouragent nos résidents à réfléchir au travail continu accompli par les membres de la communauté LGBTQ2S+, et leurs alliés, et assurer l'équité, la dignité, la protection et la liberté, et à célébrer leur contribution qui améliore notre municipalité et ses communautés. Merci.
Merci. Okay. Questions or comments on the resolution? All those in favor? Carried.
It is moved by Councillor Rivard and seconded by Councillor Nicol. Whereas requests for tenders for the sewer and water main upgrades on King and John Street were opened on June 1st, 2023 by the Director of Corporate Services and the Public Works Supervisor. And whereas 3 submissions were received, and whereas tenders have been reviewed by the project manager for Greer Galloway Group Inc., consulting engineers, and the award being recommended herein consists of the best prices meeting all specifications. And whereas council concurs with the recommendation received, be it therefore resolved that the tender for the sewer and water upgrades and reconstruction of King and John Street in the municipality of West Nipissing be awarded to LaBelle Brothers Excavating for the sum of $3,966,339.30 plus HST.
So that was included in the addendum, and there is the information there. Questions or comments? Sure whether Councillor St. Louis has this. Okay, I just have a quick question in regards to the fact that there is a corrected bid price. I'm sorry, I didn't get a chance to read that, so if it's in here. Can you explain why there's a corrected bid price?
Oh, so it's actually not a corrected bid price. It's just sort of clarifying for what we read when we opened. So when we opened the bids, there's a cover page that had their price on it, and then there's all the detail of all the schedule of units and everything like that. So on their cover page, they put the price including HST, which is the 4.4 million, which we read, but the schedule of unit prices, which is always what our procurement policy says we go with the schedule of unit prices, is the 3.9.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments otherwise? Okay, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of awarding the tender as recommended? Carried. Thank you. Okay, it looked like a long one, but we did pretty well there. I will just give a brief report on two items. A week and a half ago, I attended the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Conference in Toronto. It was a really interesting experience because the other conferences that we generally have an opportunity to attend are very focused on provincial relationships and the policies that protect municipalities from a provincial level. This is much more focused on federal policy and an opportunity to really connect with other municipal leaders from different areas of the country. So, I met people from Nunavut to Newfoundland and from, Vancouver Island to Montreal and all points in between. It was very interesting. The big things that I took away, as I said, I mentioned previously, is there seems to be a real drive towards housing. It is a national level issue. It is every municipality across the country that's dealing with this, and I expect to see more and more opportunities for funding in that sphere come available from a federal level. There is a webinar tomorrow from the CMHC on their accelerating trying to remember the fund. I think it's Accelerating Housing Fund that's being offered by the CMHC. And the other really interesting thing I took away is that there's a big push for advocacy from municipalities across the country on really amending the fiscal framework under which the federal government operates and funds. So, at this point, and I think we all see it, funding programs are developed and created by governments to support their specific policy objectives and pushed out to municipalities. And we're challenged to either find projects that fit the criteria that the government wants, or we have to wait on projects until the government thinks that the things that are important to us are important to them. There's a lot of advocacy going on to create funding from the federal government that is sustainable and reliable, that is, based on population or based on geography, or whatever, however they create that number to really, stop making it so that we're begging at the table of government for the scraps and trying to find, dollars here and there, but really make it sustainable. So that was really interesting. And the other thing is myself and several other members of our council did participate in the flag raising for Pride Month at Minnehaha Bay on June 1st. It was a really great turnout. There were a lot of people there, and you could really feel a great amount of support for members of the LGBTQ2S+ community and their allies. And I think it's a really good sign that a small municipality like ours is taking steps to really be openly inclusive. And I was really touched by the turnout, and the people were there, including several of our young people and high school students who spoke very well about their experiences, and it was wonderful. So with that, I will leave it, and we will be proceeding into closed session.
Is moved by Councillor Nicol and seconded by Councillor Rivard. Be it resolved that we proceed into closed meeting as authorized in Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act to discuss the following: a pending acquisition or disposition of municipal land regarding the Cache Trailer Park, and personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees, for a human resources update.
All those in favor? Carried.